Hello, welcome. Welcome to the African Business Engine. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking about two concepts. The first concept is clear language engenders clear thought, and clear thought is the most important benefit of education. Now, this concept applies in two frameworks in this African business engine. The first framework is Africa, and the second framework is engine. Now, in Africa, all these initials AF, RIC, all of them mean something. Now, the one we're going to be focused on is the first letter A in Africa. And as for engine, the letters we're going to focus on are E and N. Now, this concept can be applied to all the letters in Africa framework and engine framework, but we're going to look at examples using the first letter in Africa framework, which is A, which stands for analyze local pain, and the first E in engine framework, which stands for empathize with African buyers, and the first N in engine framework, which stands for name the pain problem. Now, the first A in Africa framework, how you can apply this concept goes like clear language. You can use clear language to analyze local pain. If you use clear language to analyze local pain, you'll be able to get clear thoughts on how to solve that local pain. And as for the letter E, if you use clear language when empathizing with African buyers, you'll be able to have clear thoughts of understanding their daily reality, like for example their payment methods. Now, the next letter is letter N, which is still the first N in the engine framework, which stands for name the pain problem. Now, if you use clear language to understand, or if you use clear language when you're trying to describe the pain problem, you'll be able to get clear thoughts on how the problem will pay. If you use clear language when naming the pain problem, you'll be able to get clear thoughts on how the problem will pay. Now, let's now apply this to level 1 businesses. When I say level 1 businesses, I'm talking about hustler level businesses. That's the lowest form of business in the world, and it is mostly found in Africa. So when I say hustler level businesses, I mean businesses like businesses that people do, such as hawking in the streets. These are businesses mostly found in Africa. So I'm talking about hawkers. So some time back, I used to do a business in this level. This business was sandpaper smoothing. It is in the same level as hawking. Yeah, they're the lowest form of businesses somebody can ever do. Businesses such as hawking in the streets. Maybe you are hawking fruits, hawking clothes. Maybe you are doing things like sandpaper smoothing, such as scrubbing the roofs of construction buildings. That is the ceiling. When I talk about the roof, I mean the ceiling, and also walls. When I talk about sandpaper smoothing, I mean you smoothen them for the painter to come and paint, so that the paint can come out as smoothly as possible. Now, when I was in sandpaper smoothing business, there's a guy who was a painter. We were supposed to go with him to paint a certain house. Now, this was my first time doing this business. I've never done it before. Now, instead of this person to tell me that I should carry clothes that I will be able to use while doing the job, he was just quiet. He didn't tell me anything. He was speaking in a very vague language. He just told me to wake up early, let's go to work. Now, if he would have used a clear language, he would have told me to carry everything I needed to carry, such as a torn t-shirt or a torn trouser that I could use to do the work, because I couldn't use the clothes that I boarded the vehicle with to do the work, because it's the kind of job you do there makes you very dirty. You look like a monkey actually once you're done doing the job. So this is an example of clear language engenders clear thought. If you would have communicated using a clear language by telling me all the things I needed before we arrived there, I would have had a clear thought of everything I needed to organize. Because once I arrived there and I had nothing to use to do the job, I had to start looking around, looking for somebody who I could borrow clothes from. Now, the second application is cyber cafe. Now, this is an SME level. This is not a hawking level. This is not a hawker level or low level form of business. This is an SME level, small to medium businesses. So I also ran a cyber cafe a while back. Now, there's a customer who one day came to the shop and wanted to print one page, but he wanted 100 copies of them. So I asked him, so you want me to print 100 copies of this single page? He said, yes. Now, I told him that printing per page was 10 shillings. Now, this is a vague language on my side. I was supposed to tell him that the total cost of printing would be 1,000 shillings because he wanted 100 copies. He wanted 100 copies of a single page. Now, I told him printing per page is 10 shillings. So, once I was done printing 100 copies of that single page, I told him the total price is 1,000 shillings. Then he was in shock and he said, why did you do that? He told me that I was supposed to print one page, then photocopy it 99 times. Now the language changed. Now printing is 10 shillings per page and photocopying is 5 shillings per page. So he was looking on a way of saving cost, but I can't blame him because the fault was on my side because I didn't use clear language. I used a vague language. I should have told him that the total cost will be 1,000 shillings and not printing is 10 shillings per page. That was a vague language. So that's another application. Now, let's come to level 3 businesses. Now, level 3 businesses are the billion-dollar businesses. These are businesses built by visionaries. Now, the first application of this concept is, let's take a look at Twiga Foods in Kenya. Now, Twiga Foods, they didn't use a vague language like we want to optimize the supply chain. They didn't use such a vague language. The kind of language they used that described everything to detail. Clear language is simply a language that describes everything to detail. So the clear language they used was that I quote, a mama mboga wakes up at 4 a.m., commutes 5 kilometers to Gikomba, then pays 100 shillings to a middleman for a sack of tomatoes. And by noon, half of these tomatoes are rotten or spoiled. Now, they saw that what mama mbogas needed was reliable delivery of fresh produce, not supply chain optimization. And this would also be able to save the mama mbogas time, the time they spend commuting to Gikomba to buy this produce. They will now be able to use that time to sell instead of using that time to go and get stock. So this is an example of a clear language. Now let's go to Toyota. Toyota is a very big company. Yeah, it's located in Japan. Now, in Toyota, they didn't use a vague language like we perform industrialization, or we do industrialization, or we manufacture vehicles. They didn't use such a vague language, or for example, they didn't use a vague language like we manufacture vehicles efficiently without errors. That's a vague language. Now, the clear language that led to clear thoughts that Toyota used was and on chord and the 5 whys. Now, what does and on chord / and on call means? Now, and on chord is simply a mechanism whereby in a production system, in the Toyota manufacturing company, in the production system, there are stages where whatever they're manufacturing passes through. Now, in each stage, there's a human being located there. Now, what the under code means that if this human being notices an error in whatever they're manufacturing, he or she is allowed to pull a cord. So in the olden days, it was a cord being pulled. Nowadays, I think it is a switch being pressed. Now, whether it is a cord or a switch being pressed, we have to visit Toyota to find out. But whichever the case, you'll find that if that is done, an alarm system will be triggered, and then the team leader will come and check what the problem is at that particular stage. So if the problem is something they can solve in a few minutes, then it is solved and the production process continues. If it is a problem that will take a lot of time, the production process is halted and the problem is first fixed before the production system continues. And in this way, they're able to prevent producing finished goods that have defects. Now, coming to the 5 whys. When an on-call happens, when this call happens, when this alarm system is triggered, that means clearly we have a problem. Now, the 5 whys are used to diagnose this problem. Now, this problem has symptoms. So, what the 5 whys does, it is supposed to delve. It is supposed to help in delving beyond the surface symptoms of the problem so as to uncover the root cause of this problem in 5 steps or less or more. So this 5 in this 5 whys, this 5 is not something concrete, or it's not a permanent number. The root cause of the problem can be discovered using 5 whys, or less than 5 whys, or more than 5 whys. So how does this 5 whys work? So let's say there's a problem. For example, fuse has exploded. Now this is a problem. Now the first why comes here. Why? Why has the fuse exploded? Now this is the first why. Now then we'll get an answer to the why. Let's say an answer like maybe water spilled on it. Then we ask the next why. Now this next why, this second why, is a why referring to the answer of the preceding why. It's a why referring to the answer of the preceding why. Now, let's say now after the second why, now the problem was the fuse has exploded. We asked the first why. Then the answer was because water spilled on it. Now the second why. Then let's now say give an answer like so we're asking why did water spill on it. Let's say maybe there's a leaking roof. Then now the third why. Now as you can see in this mechanism, each why refers to the answer of the preceding why, and in that fashion you're able to use the 5 whys mechanism they're able to use the 5 why mechanisms to be able to diagnose the root cause of an issue so that they can be able to solve the problem efficiently. Now this 5 whys, this and on-code 5 whys method is also called JIDOKA. What does JIDOKA mean? JIDOKA means automation with a human touch. That is what JIDOKA means. Now, I told you we were going to discuss 2 concepts. Now the first concept we have just finished. It goes like clear thoughts engenders clear language, engenders clear thought. And clear thought is the most important benefit of education. That was the first concept. Now the second concept is people think that for them to be able to build a successful business, they need to attend business school, which is a lie. Because all you need is common sense, simple arithmetic, and understanding of a few core principles and ideas. Now, when you understand these concepts, principles, and ideas, you'll find that when you face different situations in a business, you will be able to handle them effectively, or you'll be able to know where to start from in these common business situations. Now, for you to be able to do this and many more, you have to make sure these concepts, you don't just understand them, but you also apply them in real world. And that's how you'll be able to reap the benefits for the rest of your life. Now, for this particular concept of not needing to attend business school to build a successful business, the frameworks you're going to be using is the Africa framework once again, and the engine framework once again. In future videos, I'll explain to you what the Africa framework is in full and the engine framework is in full. Now, in both these frameworks, this concept lies in, for the Africa framework, this concept lies in F. F means forge your MVP. Now, in the engine framework, this concept lies in letter I. I stands for implement your MVP. Now, in business, there are three things. There's an MVP, MVS, and MVC. MVP means minimum viable business. MVS means minimum viable service. MVP means minimum viable product. So, just depending on what kind of business you're building, whether it is a service-based business or a product-based, you'll know whether it's a mixture of both. You can be able to call it the appropriate one. Now, for F, for these two letters, F and I, forging your MVP and implementing your MVP / MVS / MVB. Now, all you'll need is common sense, simple arithmetic, and understanding of a few basic principles and ideas. Now, let's try and apply this concept to the three business levels. Now, level 1, which is the hawker level, or some of you might call it the hustler level, hawking in the streets. Now, we're going to use an example of a business called hawking boiled eggs plus kachumbari. This is a business I used to do. I stopped doing it about 3 weeks ago. I've done it for a long time, about 7+ months. Now, when hawking eggs, let's say for a hawker who is hawking eggs in the streets, hawking boiled eggs in the streets plus kachumbari, the common sense here, the common sense I saw when doing this business was that most of the people who used to hawk eggs, they weren't selling fresh eggs. Mostly they used to sell eggs that have slept overnight, eggs that they had cooked the previous day. And also they were not clean. They were also not clean. And also another problem was that these eggs were not being sold hot. So most of the kachumbaris were also not fresh. So I saw this as a business opportunity that I asked myself, why can't I start this business by doing all this? Then I did. Now the simple arithmetic here was very simple. A crate of eggs goes for 390 shillings. The cost of tomatoes, onions, charcoal, water, soap for washing my white coat, and pepper all came to about 150 shillings. So 390 shillings plus 150 shillings, you get 540 shillings. Now, each egg, I sell it at a price of 30 shillings. 30 times 30 is 900 shillings. Now, 900 shillings minus 540 shillings, you get 900 shillings minus 540, you get 360 shillings. Now, I used to make about 360 shillings in profit for one crate. I believe it is 360. Let me just confirm. 0, 10, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it is 360 shillings in profit for one sale. Now, the principle here is just simple. Just do what the customer wants. Make sure you are clean, what you're selling is fresh, and the eggs are hot. Now, let's take an example of another application. It's a cereals business. Now, the common sense, I used to do cereals business also some time back. I also did cereals business, and the common sense in this business was within a radius of 100 kilometers from where I intended to put my shop, there was nobody else selling cereals, and where the shop was a high foot traffic location. Now, I saw this as an opportunity. I asked myself, why can't I offer this? Why can't I open such a business here whereby I sell cereals by buying low and selling high? Now, the simple arithmetic here was this. So let me give an example of a day I went to buy a sack of maize in the main market. Now, I left my business premises, boarded a vehicle to the market where I was going to buy this sack of maize. The transport cost 60 shillings. Now, coming back also cost 60 shillings. But when coming back, I'm coming back with a sack. This sack, I will be charged 100 shillings for carrying it. Now, total cost of coming back is 160 shillings. Now, the total cost of transportation cost of going and coming back with the sack is 160 plus 60. That is 220 shillings. Now, this 220 shillings, how I'm supposed to pay for it is through the profits I'm going to garner by selling this maize at retail price. So if the profit per kg for this maize is 10 shillings, how many kgs must I come with in order to be able to pay this transportation cost? I have to come with 22 kgs list. So 22 kgs times 22 kgs times 10, I'll be able to get 220 shillings in profit. That will be able to pay for this transportation cost, because I can't pay for this transportation cost using my restocking money. Otherwise, I won't be able to restock maize. Now, after paying for the transport using 22 kgs, I'm also supposed to pay for my shop, and I also need money for my own personal things and for my own house where I live. Now, this means that when coming back, 22 kg won't be enough, because it will only just give me profit to be able to pay for the transportation cost. It will only give me profit to pay for the transportation cost. Now, this means I will have to come back with more than 22 kgs. So let's say around 42 kgs. Now, these 20 more kgs will now be my own profit to be able to handle my own expenses, like the rent for this shop and my house where I live, and other things like water, electricity, etc. Now, this 20 additional kilograms time, if you multiply it by 10, you get a profit of 200 shillings. So this is the profit I would take home in a day if I come back. If I go to the market and come with a sack of 42 kilograms of maize. Now, this is a very good example of a simple arithmetic. Now, the principle here was that in this business was that most of the customers wanted grain cleaned cereals, meaning cereals that stones and dust particles and whatnots had been removed from them. Now, that is the basic principle. Now, let's go to level 3 business. Level 3 business. Now, let's take an example of Twiga Foods in Kenya. Now, Twiga Foods' common sense, what they saw was that farmers had supply of foods, and mama mbogas or kiosk owners needed reliable supply. So what did they do? They offered that reliable supply and solved the surplus food that the farmers had by buying it from them and reliably supplying them to the mama mbogas and the guys who own the kiosks. Now, the simple arithmetic here is this. Let's say a farmer sells to Twiga Foods 1 kg of onions at 30 shillings. Twiga Foods sells this 1 kg of onions to mama mboga or a kiosk owner at 40 shillings. And the logistics cost 5 shillings for this 1 kilogram. That means their profit is 5 shillings per kilogram of onions. And remember, yes, it is small, but remember, this is a very scalable business. This is a very, very highly scalable business. It can scale massively. It can scale massively by volume of orders. So it is a small profit, but highly scalable. Now, This business was, there were two guys who were co-founders, Peter Jonjo and Grant Brook. These guys didn't have business, didn't go to business school, and none of them had MBAs. I just wanted you guys to note that. Now, another application of this concept is IKEA. There's a company called IKEA in Sweden. The owner of the company, it was founded by a guy called Campard. Now, the common sense here was that this guy saw that furniture was expensive. Most people were not able to afford furniture. So he decided to make furniture affordable by not reducing the profit margins, but by reducing their bulky state. Because the costs were so high because of their bulky nature. So you'd find that in a showroom per square meter, a table, or let's say for example a table which could not be disassembled and reassembled would be able to occupy that whole space. But you find that using Campard's method of building furniture that were able to be disassembled and assembled, you find that per meter squared of a showroom, that meter square would be able to carry more pieces of furniture as compared to the previous example scenario where I gave you, where it's only one furniture that was able to fit in that meter square. So this is simply unit economics. Now, another example is you find that in a vehicle, delivery vehicle, a lorry that is delivering a piece of furniture to a customer, you find that it's only one chair that could fit inside. But using Campard's method of building furniture that could be disassembled and assembled by the customer in 30 minutes, in a single trolley, they were able to fit like 50 pieces. So this is the simple arithmetic I'm explaining to you. This is the simple arithmetic in this business. You'll find that if it is one furniture in a lorry and the delivery cost is $200, you'd find that this whole $200 will be added as an additional cost, as an additional amount of money to be paid by the customer. But if there were 50 pieces of furniture, so all being delivered to 50 different people. Now all these 50 customers would be able to share this delivery cost of $200. So each customer would only be incurred an additional amount of $4, because 200 divided by 50 is $4. $20 divided by 50 is $4. Now, this is the simple arithmetic. So the common sense of this guy was just to make furniture affordable. And he did it by creating furniture that could be disassembled and assembled by the customer in 30 minutes. Now, the principle that this guy used was that actually he used to sell things on his bicycle. He used to have a retail shop and used to sell things on his bicycle. So everything he did, he proved positive unit economics. What I'm trying to say is that he made sure he was making profit. What he was doing was profitable before scaling. He started by one product, sold it, checked if it was profitable before scaling, then scaled. Now, this is simply the principle of this guy. Now, this guy never had an MBA. He never went to business school. I don't even think he went to college. You guys can confirm. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. These were the two concepts I wanted to talk to you guys about in this video. You guys can confirm. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. These were the two concepts I wanted to talk to you guys about in this video. I hope I'll see you all, guys. I hope I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.